Hi, I'm Belle, and this is my Tarot week ahead forecast for the week beginning March the 31st. I'm experiencing this period of time as being very full, intense, a lot going on, but not necessarily on the outside, but it certainly feels like there's a lot going on in here. I'm looking at the spread today and I'm seeing three distinct themes. And the first one relates to something that I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, and I used the expression shaken to awaken. Now, when I sat down with the cards and I just went into my meditation that I do before reading, and the very first thing that presented to me was a picture of a wet, muddy dog with long hair having a really good shake, and what I could see was the mud and the water being expelled from the dog, and if you've ever seen that, you'll know exactly what I mean. This feeling of shaking ourselves awake, it comes up again this week. It's quite physical, it's interesting. It feels like a physical shaking, and that might be something that you actually do. A lot of practices, warm-up practices of all sorts of different disciplines involve shaking and actually shaking stiffness, or if you've been sitting for a long time, shaking things out. So this is not an unfamiliar thing for us to do. It comes up strongly at the very top. I'm just going to show you this because this is very active. And so, but interestingly, we've got two cards together, both of which have people doing things together. So there's something here about, on one level, shaking off anything. I feel that these will be old habits, and they might be old commitments. They might be things that you feel, oh, I always do that, I must do that, we've always done that. This is quite a crunch time. We've got a total eclipse of the sun. We have Mercury retrograde coming up. The eclipse is the following week. So it's a time to get involved in your own process. This is not a time for sitting on the back bench going, oh, there's stuff happening over there. It's a time for really engaging with your own process of, what do I need to let go of? What do I no longer want to carry with me? What needs change in my life? I mean, if you are fortunate, you will be in a situation where you get to make those choices. However, many of us will possibly have choices that are forced upon us by events. There's no good nor bad here. This is how it is. Things will happen to us, and there will be areas where we can choose. This is a period of time. I'm moving on to my second theme now. This is a period of time where it's important for us to find the resources within ourselves that enable us to become the rock for ourselves, someone that we can rely on, maybe for others. Maybe there are other people around us who also need someone to lean into. Importantly, I feel that it's really important that as we find that place of sustenance inside ourselves, as we find how we do that, and let's talk about that in a minute, it's also important that we recognize our need to receive, because being the rock, I'm just going to show you a few more things here, quite simply. So here we have in the middle. Now this is an earth sign. It's not a fire sign. This isn't necessarily a place of great leadership, but it's a great place of great sustenance. So finding the place within ourselves that says, I belong, I nourish myself in certain ways, in my lifestyle, in my friends, how I eat, what I eat, how I live, the choices that I make. How do I sustain and provide sustenance for myself? Because if we're not doing it for ourselves, it's going to be very difficult to do it for others. So this is the big theme. Now, let's look at this character. What is he not doing? He, she, it doesn't matter. What this person is not doing is rushing around. They're not rushing around. They're not panicking. They're not overworking. They're not over having anxiety about the future. This person is grounded and relaxed within themselves. Now that may take some work. You know, if there's a lot of stuff happening in our lives which is unsettling, and there may very well be, we've certainly got some strong possibilities of change here, possibilities of loss, whether it's loss on a personal level or on a much wider community or world level. So, you know, this will be a provocative time, not just this week. I mean, really, you know, we are in provocative times. So let's take a tip from this person. This is the King of Pentacles, who is grounded, and we may ground ourselves in all sorts of different ways. And one of the most obvious ways, and particularly at this time of the year, are anyone who has the opportunity to do gardening of any kind. Doesn't have to be your own garden, could be somebody else's. All sorts of opportunities for getting our hands and our feet in the soil, and this will provide connection with the earth is very, very good for humans. And so it provides us with this sense of stability in here. So on either side of this very stable card, we have enjoyment, pleasure, all of our needs being met, and certainly on a material level here and an emotional level. And we've got a fire sign which says, I've got energy to go. So this period of time can be challenging, and especially on the level of emotions, our feelings. Moving back to the images from the meditation, started off with this very wet, shaggy dog, mud flying all over the place, the releasing of old habits. We will know what those habits are, whether it's particular things that we know haven't worked for us for a long time, or we just can't get round to making that change, or whether it's things which we don't know about yet, changing our habits to do new things which are good for ourselves. I mean, for example, joining a Qigong class. You know, this is something new, a new habit that's going to be good for me. The element of water appears here. So I've been talking about stability being the rock, but the element of water is also strongly here, because the other image that came up after the shaking dog was of, I think it's what you'd call a bus shelter, or a shelter that is built on the side of the seafront, at a seafront in a coastal town. So you've got the ocean, you've got the sand or the pebbles, and then you've got a seafront and places where people can sit. And some of those places are shelters, and you often see them. You know, you see them all over the country, I'm sure. They're familiar and, you know, possibly quite old, maybe Victorian, maybe not, but features of a seaside environment. Anyway, this shelter, I saw this shelter being battered by huge waves, and I felt that this quality of being the rock for ourselves, for others, with others. So we're not having to do it all. We're not having to be the rock and everybody else leans on us. We are the rock for ourselves. We may be the rock for others, but we are also supporting each other. And it feels like what that does, it's the sustenance which keeps us going through periods of times which can be emotionally very strong. Moving on to the last thing I want to say is that this is also, we've looked at that. This is also a period of time when we can be very inspired. We can allow ourselves to be inspired. We can allow ourselves to receive images, information, dreams, things which come back from the past to the present. You know, projects that maybe we started but put away, ideas that we never fully developed, but suddenly it's like there's a space for this, and it's like, oh my goodness. So this is also a period of time where we can dream, and I would say it's important that we dream in the future that we actually want, the future that brings us most joy. So these are interesting times, but some of the things that I'm talking about are actually very ordinary human skills, you know, to feel substantial in ourselves, to offer that to others, to receive from others so that we don't feel like we are doing it all. This is, you know, this is human life. And so we are being, I feel that we are being invited by events on a very personal level or events on a world level, because we are affected. You know, I know from all the readings I'm doing for people, we are affected deeply by things which are happening elsewhere. So it is personal, you know, whether it's happening in your living room or not. So this also is true, that out of tragedy, whether it's our own personal loss or whether it's something that we may perceive elsewhere in the world, energy can come forth. New things grow from the old. We already know this. But in these strong times, I just want to end on the note of, let us dream well. Whatever we dream, let us dream it well. I know from the readings I've been doing over the last few weeks that people have been feeling squeezed. There have been some very, very strong periods of time that people have experienced. So I'm aware that there may be other people out there who haven't had a reading, and maybe you don't know how useful a reading can be. And I would just say it can show the way forward. So whatever your situation is, it can show you the way forward, and the way forward that is best for you. So don't hesitate to get in touch, and you can do that by going below, leave a message and just say, hi Belle, interested in a reading. We will speak privately, communicate privately, and you can also go to Messenger and message me. Just go to Belle Bartlett and say the same thing. Okay, I wish us all well in this coming week. Take care.